The moment Canadians realized they'd been had, Liberals quietly removed tariffs. And another minister talks, no pipelines, all that and more on the Really Big Show. We got lots today, lots. I'm Jim Csek with NowMedia, and we got lots of really cool memes right at the end as well. With me on the phone, live on the screen now, Iain Burns, all the way from the nation's capital. How's it looking out there?
It's another one of those days where it's hot and cloudy. It's like sticky and cloudy. So I got the fan on, trying to survive.
Well, I didn't put it in there, but Chrystia Freeland said that she's now looking after a very sexy portfolio. So hot and steamy and sexy out there in Ottawa.
I think the words sexy and Chrystia Freeland can never, ever be in the same sentence. I'm going to declare that as a law.
I just don't understand why she would say that. I mean, she said that now she's looking after a sexy portfolio. What? Like, she was the deputy prime minister and the finance minister.
And she was also, don't forget her credentials. You're always forgetting credentials, Jim.
Oh, right.
I believe she went to Oxford University. Have some respect. And she worked for the Financial Times. The Financial Times. She obviously knows what she's doing.
She might have wanted to pick up a few more words, though, because sexy describing a portfolio for the Canadian government, I don't know. Maybe not so much.
Yeah. Right? I've just seen here her American equivalent, Nikki Haley, is in Ottawa right now. So there you go. Maybe they're shaking hands right now.
Well, there you go. Andrew Coyne, in a op-ed in the Globe and Mail, writes, "We've been had." There you go.
Coyne.
Yeah. So there you go. He said, Carney's cabinet, a familiar mix of quotas, duplication, and pork barrel politics. There you go. Yep. Some of the media realizing that they'd been had. Well, they might have been doing part of the hatting for us, right?
Well, come on. I can't. He says, we've been had. Speak for yourself. You've been had. I think there are a lot of people out there that knew that this was the Liberal Party. It wasn't going to change that dramatically. I mean, why are you so surprised, Coyne? Come on, man. You've been around the block a few times.
The ones that voted Liberal realize they've been had. The other ones are just like, how did we get had is the question. I guess the real question. There you go.
Well, I think the answer to that is to be found south of us.
Yeah. And this question obviously has come up, and it sounds like Carney's Liberals quietly removed those tariffs while he was still talking tough. We're going to play this clip here, though.
The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
And apparently they eased those tariffs quietly before the day of the election as well.
I think the truth is it's exactly the inverse. They had a minimum impact in the United States and the maximum impact in Canada because they helped him win election. So they didn't really serve any other purpose, did they?
And then they quietly removed them without informing Canadians that they'd been removed as well. So they just used that tough talk and all that stuff to win that election.
Wow, I mean, who could have seen that coming? Definitely not me. Stupid old me. I couldn't see that coming. Or, many other millions of people that saw the obvious. I mean, Doug Ford did the kind of dry run in February. He did the same thing. And Doug Ford's sort of elections advisor, Corey Tenike, he came out during the election and said, oh, yeah, that's what we did. We had a whole plan for how to win the election, which we incinerated as soon as Donald Trump started to make threats about Canadian sovereignty and all the rest of it. And then we just made the election entirely about Donald Trump. I mean, who could have been blind to that? That obviously the Liberals were going to go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Like obviously, let's win the election like this. It gets that I feel this way a lot, where it's just kind of like, what can you do? What can you do for people that are that gullible? I don't really know if that level of gullibility and naivety. I don't think you can just like talk people out of that, you know? I think that's almost kind of inborn.
Yeah, they drove a lot of fear, and it worked. I mean, and Trudeau did that with the COVID, and he won that election. And Carney did the same thing, ramped up the fear with the Trump card, and then quietly reversed it. So anyway, and here we have another minister. Let's play this clip here from Dominic LeBlanc. It's in French, so just the subtitles. I don't know if you need to put the sound on, but.
Dans mes conversations avec les premiers ministres, et M. Carney, dans la campagne électorale, a été très clair, un corridor énergétique, ça peut amener des lignes de transmission d'électricité, ça peut amener le gaz naturel, ça peut amener à la limite des wagons de minéraux critiques. Ce n'est pas uniquement des pipelines. Les gens ont tendance à réduire ça à une pipeline de pétrole.
Ouais.
On ne parle pas de pipeline de pétrole quand on parle de corridor énergétique.
Yeah, and then, so that's Pierre Poilievre's tweet there, if you can put that up there. No, back one. There you go. So yeah, so there's first Stephen Guilbeault saying no need for a pipeline, and here we go with LeBlanc and Pierre Poilievre.
Again, I mean, it was pretty obvious that during the campaign that Carney, who's really the only one that matters apparently, because the rest of them were all locked away, weren't they, during the election? But Carney said that, didn't he? He was like, we're going to be a superpower in both conventional and renewable energy. And he kept on talking about east-west, what was it, energy corridor? Like, it's quite clearly just trying to think of phrases, trying to think of ways to say it without being explicit, to try and be as vague as possible, to be an obscurantist, which, central bankers aren't supposed to be. They're supposed to be the opposite of that, aren't they? But he went in there full of politics, I suppose, and he pushed a very sort of hazy platform when it came to energy. Very, very hard to penetrate. The press, I mean, a couple of people asked him once or twice, but as usual, the Canadian press failed, as they always do. They failed to scrutinize him. But also, he didn't sit, to be fair to the press, he didn't sit down for any interviews. He sat down for a couple of joke interviews with CTV and stuff, like in Halifax, didn't he? Which he screwed up, and he screwed up a couple of little interviews with like local reporters, and then that was it. Really, he didn't sit down for like a grilling with Vasi like he did earlier this week. So in a way, there was not really all that much that could be done, I suppose. But it wasn't something he was asked about as often as he should have been. Yeah, and I think he managed to thrive in that ambiguity.
Yeah,
but it was always there.
Yeah. They ran that election in the shortest window possible, ramped up the fear to the highest level possible, and then did very little, allowed very little scrutiny.
Yeah, and let's be fair and reasonable. Poilievre did the same thing. He went on a couple of joke podcasts. What the hell was that? He did not take the election seriously from a media point of view, not one bit. He just wanted to broadcast. It was all of these rallies, which were just the same thing over and over and over again, with like different people in the audience. Both of them shamed themselves, and obviously Jagmeet Singh. Don't even get me started.
Yeah. We got another clip here from Mark Carney talking about his plan for the budget here, and then we're getting lots of blowback on this no budget. So we're gonna play this clip first, though.
I've learned a few things from long experience in crises. And the first is that plan beats no plan.
There you go. Plan beats no plan. And apparently there is no plan. And then we got a reaction here from Pierre Poilievre. Let's play the clip here from Pierre. We haven't played Pierre for a while. He hasn't been
determines and informs Canadians of the size of the debt and the deficit, of the future interest rate and inflation costs, of the tax policies that determine whether companies hire or fire employees, of the laws that allow us to, or block us from, building major infrastructure projects that will create jobs and make us more independent from the Americans who are threatening us with tariffs. Now, Mr. Carney said during the election campaign that he had a plan. And he took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan. Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget so that Canadians know exactly what the finances are. We were very disappointed yesterday to hear that he has no budget plan for this year. This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances. And so we're here with solutions. I'm proposing offering the Prime Minister to sit down with him and propose conservative solutions that we hope that he will steal. I want him to steal our best ideas. That includes cutting the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down deficits, inflation, and taxes. We want a real income tax cut that rewards hard work, axe the federal sales tax on new homes to promote more building and lower costs, and stand up against American tariffs with lower taxes on Canadian investment and by repealing all of the anti-energy policies like C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, and unleashing our resources so that we can become the richest country in the world.
There you go.
Well, he says he's not got a plan. It seems like what the Liberals are saying is he has got a plan. He's just not telling us about it. So I think that's more the sort of situation we're in.
It's extremely odd, though, being a guy in the finance, which with budgets is like, as an accountant, budgets is the main thing you work with. Why wouldn't you'd think that'd be the first guy to trot out a plan? I mean, that's what he kind of like said to Canadian public, that he has a plan. So being a Bank of Canada governor, Bank of England governor, why won't you share the plan? What's in it that you're scared to share? I mean, disclosure has been one of his worst parts, and then trickery or whatever you want to call it there with like quietly removing the tariffs, still not disclosing what his financial holdings on, all those things. He's been like very, very opaque.
Absolutely, and it's as many people have observed and said already, this doesn't exactly fill investors with confidence, does it? It's not a good arrangement. So he's obviously going to have to say something. He's going to have to. We need more than the pie charts that were in the Liberal platform at the end in the appendix there. I think we need a bit more than that, don't we, for what's going to happen to Canadian finances over the next year. Well, we need something a bit more detailed.
If you're in a company and looking to invest in Canada, if the country doesn't even have a budget that it releases, why would you risk your capital?
Yeah, indeed. And if the most supposedly he's meant to be the most scrutinized person in Canada, if this individual is very cagey and not very forthcoming with information, you don't really know much about him. You don't know where his priorities lie. It's beyond it's not just a political question. To his holdings, his assets, that's beyond politics. That's also financial, isn't it? And economic. That's about we need to know. And anybody that's ever read like Bloomberg or the Financial Times or whatever, you need all the information before you make a decision on investment, and that includes all right, where's the top guy? Where's he got his money? That is actually quite important, isn't it? So if you're looking at Canada as a potential environment to invest in, yeah, you're thinking he's not telling us what he's invested in personally. He hasn't given us a budget, and he keeps telling us that he's going to be like this economic wizard and he's going to fix Canada's finances, and yet he's appointed the same front bench, basically the same most powerful ministers as Justin Trudeau did, who, according to Mark Carney, was a bit of a failure on economics. So, yeah, It's not good. And I can't imagine this is going to get a favorable review, even in the sort of left liberal financial press like The Economist and the FT and all that. I don't think they're going to be very impressed with this either.
Yeah, and then if you compare it to, he said he's going to be the strongest nation in the G7, strongest economy in the G7. And then Donald Trump said when he was running that you're going to get sick of winning, and they are racking up the wins. Like they're putting the W's on the board, like now they're saying it's over $10 trillion that has been committed by large companies. And that doesn't speak to the multitude of smaller companies like, Canadian companies like Canfor going and investing south of the border. These are just the huge deals that amount to that $10 trillion. And that's like, and in his own words, that's never been seen before. But a lot of that is money that may have made its way to Canada, and it's not making its way to Canada. The United States is getting all the attention and all the money, and it's all to do with lower taxation, less regulation, fast tracking, and just the environment down there right now.
Well, Mark Carney told us that exact environment, which he described as feverish or something along those lines, is like a patch of extremism where the Americans are confused. He told us that was our greatest strength, because we could continue with carbon capture and ESG and all that stuff, and by doing so attract global investment, attract all that delicious direct foreign investment. And yet that isn't really, at least so far, I mean, early days, but that hasn't happened yet, has it? They're still going to America, the world's largest economy with the largest sort of consumer base, which is in control of the world reserve currency and all the rest of the things that America has in its favor. It's not that much of a surprise, is it, that they would still invest in the US? But Carney told us that Trump would turn off investors, whereas he would turn them on. So, we have to hold him to that. It's yet to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, you can play that song, all they do is win, 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 and the Americans look like they're doing the win, win, win. And that's, like that trip to the Middle East there, he took many of the leaders, business leaders, like some of the largest corporations in the world with him on that trip. And most of them signed huge deals, like massive deals, multi-billion-dollar deals were signed on that trip. It was like more. Other than a diplomatic trip, it was a trip of prosperity for a bunch of people. And actually, like a lot of those nations did well, and so did a lot of the American companies do very, very well on that trip.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like an alternative Davos, like I've said, an alternative World Economic Forum, that's the one that Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney, even Trudeau and the rest of them, that's where they feel more comfortable. They've got lots of connections there, which is in Switzerland. I mean, that's the center of stagnation continent, isn't it? It's the center of global stagnation there in Europe. So it's kind of like Trump doesn't bother with that. He goes to the Middle East where they're flush with capital and they're not that bothered about things like environmentalism and all the rest of it. So they're happy, or whatever else, other reasons that they might have to despise Trump for his social politics or whatever. They don't care about that. So he's gone there and he's racked up the investment. And I assume Carney lieutenants, they're going to go to Davos and places like that, and what are they going to get? He's really banked big on Europe, hasn't he? And I don't know why you would do that. Europe doesn't look like it's got anything to give. Europe's in a desperate situation. The money now is in places like the Middle East, and I think that's that's hardly a shrewd observation, is it, from Team Trump? But there you go. Now they've got trillions of dollars.
Yeah, I think he put out a post there the other night that he spoke to the leader of Spain and the Prime Minister of Spain. And it says, we're going to build on it even further. I don't know what Spain would have that we would want other than a lot of fruits and vegetables, and what we would sell to Spain. They're not really big into the oil and gas thing either.
Well, yeah, they're big on solar, aren't they? Which didn't work out that well a couple of weeks ago. But the Spanish actually do manufacture quite a lot. They've got a surprisingly strong manufacturing sector. We
need to sell them something, though. We need to sell something.
Exactly.
We don't need to buy more stuff. We need to sell stuff, right? We need to sell stuff. And the only thing Canada has to sell, Energy East pipeline, like selling electricity to Alberta isn't, you can't sell electricity to Spain. Can you?
They do take in a bit of natural gas. I think they have one of those LNG terminals, at least one in Spain. So we could sell them that theoretically, but usually those, I don't know the contract situation for the Spanish, but usually you sign those on like 5 or 10 year contracts, don't you? And they've probably already got one with Qatar.
Yeah, you'd have to get it to the coast though too.
And you'd have to do that as well, yeah. Which obviously our dear friend Yves-François Blanchet will never permit.
Anyway, I don't know, like how long will it take for the Liberals to realize that our greatest asset is our natural resources, oil and gas and our LNG, and if we don't figure out how to sell that, we're going to be in trouble. And then Pierre Poilievre, the government could function without a budget, but does need a spending bill.
Yeah, this is quite a good article from our dear friends at the Canadian Press, and it's an interview with the first parliamentary budget officer, whose name is, if I can, it's something Page, isn't it?
Kevin Page.
Kevin Page.
Yeah.
Big Kev Page. Yeah, it's quite interesting because it's like he cuts the baloney out and he just talks very clearly and honestly, which you don't usually hear from PBO or anybody in Ottawa ever. But he just comes out and says, the government has, in his words, the government has no authority to spend right now as of July 1st. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? That should be the headlines everywhere. The government has no authority to spend, so they've got to pass a bill, and obviously that's going to be a momentous occasion because they're going to need help to pass that bill. They're not going to be able to pass it by themselves, no matter how many of these recounts go in their favor. I don't think they're going to get a majority, so they're going to need friends, and then but they've not tabled a budget. They're gonna have to win those friends, and it's quite interesting. The fella Page here, he talks. He says quite a lot of interesting things. He says like Parliament deserves better. So he uses some quite interesting language that you don't usually hear from lifelong bureaucrats like that.
It is. I mean, a lot of people are really reacting to this lack of budget. And again, if you could forgive him for if he wasn't like a former Bank of Canada governor. Like, he's in finance. He understands how important a budget is. Like any company understands how important a budget is. So how can you run the nation's largest company, Canada, without a budget? Unless you're trying to hide. Why wouldn't you table the budget? You know they have one. Like, you know, they're not just like they got a wallet and they just keep pulling money out of the wallet whenever a minister asks for money. Or maybe they are.
Well, Page here, he estimates that the government is going to need, just for the remainder of this fiscal year, the government is going to need $500 billion. I mean, that's so much money. It is almost impossible to understand that amount of money, isn't it? But I mean, to require that and not to table a budget, it's very, very hard to understand, isn't it? It's kind of Carney's going to have to explain this. He's off to Rome now to see the Pope, but you would think that this would be his priority, wouldn't you? To like explain to the Canadian people that he's got this under control and that he's gonna tell the story. He's gonna reveal some of the details of his plan, because it's going to be causing a lot of people anxiety, I think, this.
Ronald, somebody says that they can't hardly hear my mic. Do you want to turn mine up? Oh, okay. Is that better there, Wanda? Can you hear me now? And then Donald Trump was in Qatar there, and he visited the troops and offered them a huge pay raise. They're getting like almost record recruitment in some of the forces of the United States. And here, a new leaked internal report obtained by CBC News suggests many Canadian military recruits quickly leave over frustration over inability to get trained and into jobs they want. Well, again, as the U.S. military is going crazy, Canada's military continues to suffer, if with morale, money, and equipment. And then we got mocked by that English reporter.
Yeah, who's not really in a position to mock anyone, but she still did. That's kind of like the absolute losers in the class, and one of them, who's slightly less of a loser than the other one, gets bullying on the underdog there.
You want to check the sound? We still have sound issues there, Rommel. Okay, go ahead.
This story, though, I just every single time I see this, I feel the same way every time. This can be fixed very simply by making it so that the Canadian forces make sure that the Canadian forces is equal in status and remuneration, pension, pay, everything is equal to the RCMP. Just do that. I just get some people in from the RCMP, the executive of the RCMP, the chiefs, bring them in and just say, all right, let's turn the forces into basically like the RCMP in terms of prestige, in terms of salary and all the rest of it. And Bob's your uncle. People will then join the military because loads of people want to join the RCMP because they know they get good money and they get a good pension and all the rest of it. I mean, it can't be much more complex than that, surely.
Yeah, let us know if the audio is better now. We're working on it. Rommel's scrambling back there to see if we can get the audio to work. Yeah, it's just, it's kind of crazy. Again, the Americans are getting record enrollments now. And he just offered them a huge raise. And then, remember Christy Freeland was running for the leader of the Liberal Party and she offered a huge raise. It remains to be seen what actually happens with our military.
I just think they have contempt. They seem to have contempt for the military and people that join the military. It's not right, and it's not right on many levels. I do think there's a kind of snobbery, though, and they don't have. Look, the reason that the police get more money and generally better sort of benefits and all the rest of it is because they're visible, aren't they? And they're very important in day-to-day life. Whereas the military is kind of abstract. It's like they're somewhere else in a base in a rural part of Canada that nobody ever really goes to. You don't have to see them. You don't have to even rely on them because we're in NATO and we expect the United States to just look after us. I just think it's faded away, hasn't it, as a priority? But the way to do it, I mean, it's quite obvious, I think. I would even argue that the police in Canada on a day-to-day basis are exposed to more physical danger than the military because they might get sort of shot or stabbed or knocked over or whatever. Whereas the military, thank God, it's usually just training that they do, which I know can be dangerous, but we're not exactly in any wars right now, or not yet anyway. So I just feel like equalize that arrangement, that relationship between police and the military. It's like just get it done. And obviously it would cost a fortune, and that's the reason that they don't do it, but I think that's the answer.
So we're still fighting with audio issues. Is that any better? Rommel, can you check that? Is that working better now, or? How is the sound now? If anybody's out there listening, Ian, can you hear me on that end?
You've been fine all along, and when Rommel's adjusting it, I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing any sort of change. So I think I'm not affected by whatever the audio problems are.
It sounds like, yeah, we'll just wait and see. So anyway, no, I'm using a microphone. I hear no change as well. What?
No change. Because for me, you've been the same all along. Even when Rommel said that he changed it, you haven't changed for me.
What's that? I don't know. I don't know if we want to do that. I mean, I can talk louder. Let us know if that gets any worse or better. Home sales down across Canada as well, down 10% annually last month. Canadian Real Estate Association. Maybe Ian can do most of the talking, but there you go. Home sales down. Again, people not investing in Canada because they're unsure. People not even looking to buy homes right now because they're unsure of what's going on in Canada. Economic uncertainty likely continue to keep potential buyers sidelined.
We often talk about oil and gas industry as being like our biggest industry, which in a sense it is. It's our biggest export. That's really how we get the sort of the money into this country that we need to prosper. But the biggest part of our GDP is property, isn't it? It's real estate. So when this happens, this is quite consequential, at least for the GDP stats. And that sort of explains, I think, why the housing minister said that he's not interested in bringing house prices down, because this is, I mean, this is hardly an original comment, but this is some sort of gigantic Ponzi scheme, isn't it? Really, the Canadian real estate market. So when they see this, people will panic. Yeah, I mean, and that's besides what you mentioned, this is an indicator of a lack of confidence, isn't it, in the Canadian economy in many ways, you know, and it's related to employment and all the rest of it. But in general, not good news.
David Eby says he wants to fast-track projects, but now here we've heard from First Nations saying they're deeply disappointed in David Eby, and they want to kill the fast-track bills. They're calling on Eby to immediately kill two pieces of legislation that would fast-track projects in response to the U.S. government tariffs. And they said they'll take them to court if they have to.
Same thing that's happening in Alberta, really, isn't it? A slightly different subject. But I mean, we had this conversation months ago when they first started to talk about, when the Canada's political class started to talk about, oh yeah, we better fix our ridiculous economy so that we don't have trade barriers between provinces and all the rest of that stuff. Straight away, we said, you're going to have trouble because you're going to have to get through lots of pressure groups, lots of obstacles, one of which is the First Nations. They're probably the most, next to Quebec, they're probably the most consequential and serious challenge, I'd say, that this supposed like project of economic renewal faces, because they're very rarely on the same page as the mainstream parties, are they? They often have their own priorities. But you know, the thing is, David Eby, Mark Carney, Danielle Smith, all the rest of them, they can't pretend like this is a surprise. You know, if you and I figured this out a long time ago, they must have also known when they were talking about it. So I don't know. Let's hope they have a plan.
NowMedia has done so many stories on the forestry sector, and we've talked to the forest minister, and we've talked to David Eby, and we've talked to the jobs minister, and the forest industry really suffers here in Canada. We interviewed Kofi too, and over 10,000 jobs lost in the forest sector. And so finally they're doing something. BC appoints a council to improve forest sector and the forest ecosystem. And so they put together this Forest Advisory Council. Again, instead of doing something, they're just going to put together this Forest Advisory Council. And then what are the complaints on it? There's not enough representation from industry in it. So they got lots of representation from a bunch of special interest groups and that, but where's the industry involved in it? So where would you think when a company like Canfor decides to invest, if they don't even get to sit at the table with any fair representation, where they're going to invest their money?
I mean, I see here the second group listed is educators. Is that going to be UBC profs or whatever? Just the usual roadshow of clowns that come out and just have totally unrealistic views on the real world because they're, hidden away in academia and they don't have to care about the real world.
Yeah, so the Council of Forest Industry issued a statement Thursday saying it's deeply concerned about the lack of active industry representation on the council. BC's forest sector is in crisis, and we've said that over and over again. And mills on the edge of closure, many have closed already, and jobs are on the line in communities across the province. 10,000 jobs lost in the last couple of years, and it just continues on and on. And again, bad forest management leads to more wildfires, and then I guess more time at the podium talking about climate change and wildfires instead of having a healthy forestry sector. And they tried to tell me when I did those interviews with all the ministers in British Columbia that, like it's all over the place. And well, no, it's not true. In Alberta, the forest industry is going well. So
it's tragic. I mean, personally, I think the worst thing is beyond the economic in the sort of macro sense. And it's more about these towns that just end up being abandoned. That's so sad and so needless. There are these there's entire histories and cultures and everything in these towns, and they're just going to end up being ghost towns, aren't they? That's the saddest thing for me.
So here's the reality. People don't make towns like they don't decide to have a town in 100 Mile House because it's a great place to put a town. They don't have a town in Dawson Creek because it's a great place to have a town, and so on and so forth. They're there because of the industry that was there, whether that's a mine or a lumber mill or whatever industry is there. That's why those things start. And when you take the industry away, it just kills a town. I was speaking to somebody that works for the government out there in Ottawa, and her father has a place in a mining community in Northern Ontario. Can't sell their home because that's all that was there, was that industry. So now they're stuck with the home, and they keep thinking that the mine's going to come back on. And she said to him, then why did you vote Liberal? You knew there would be no mine coming here to this town. They will never restart the mine. And so there you go.
It's very sad, and it all boils down to the gruesome political calculus, doesn't it? That these unprincipled leaders and political types, assess these situations based on. It's like how many votes do they represent? A place like 100 Mile House, barely any, really. So what power do they have? Where's the power? It's so cruel. It's so
what they forget,
unprincipled.
What they forget, those people in the large metro communities, is that a lot of the tax revenue comes from the industry. And if you get rid of all the industry, the only person they have left to squeeze for tax revenue is you, right?
Yeah.
That's where the taxes, the BC NDP, 33 new taxes since they've been in power. And they continue to squeeze that. And we're going to talk about it in a bit here. Well, the next thing we can put it up, actually. BC's budget deficit over the next 3 years, over $30 billion. So where do you think they're going to get that money? They're not going to be able to fast-track projects. They basically killed the forestry sector, which used to be BC's #1 sector. Mining and forestry are BC's go-to. And forestry.
Totally, that's why BC's there, really, isn't it? That's why it's a polity. That's why it exists.
And if you think forestry is a patient, it's on the bed in cardiac arrest right now. It's in cardiac arrest, and they put together a council to talk about it. And you read some of the people that are going to be in this council. They realize, I don't think they realize you have to convince people to invest hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars to open a mill or to do, like in the forestry sector. It's not just because they're not going to, I can't even say it. They're not even going to go, anyway.
Another thing, sorry, just slightly different direction there. But you're talking about how the people in the metro areas don't understand where their money comes from. Yeah. It feels to me like even after all this, what's happened, the war in Ukraine and the hike in gas prices and all the rest of it, it seems like they still don't understand how reliant they are on commodities. They really, they have nothing but contempt for these. Well, by and large, it's a generalization, but they have nothing but contempt for oil, gas, mineral extraction, all the rest of it, and yet their entire lives depend on it. And as soon as something goes wrong, even a little bit, like the disturbance in the gas LNG market in 2022 after the Russians invaded Ukraine, then all of a sudden it's like all hell breaks loose. It's kind of like, why are you only now realizing that the men in hard hats and high-vis jackets make your life possible? Let them do what they want to do. Let them do what they need to do. But it's just this split here between urban and rural. It's not quite rural, is it? It's like it's like a class split. The white collar, blue collar split, let's call it, that has devastating consequences for everybody. Because the urbanites that vote against this stuff, it ends up coming around in the end. They get bitten by it in the end, don't they? And then then they probably blame them. They blame the blue collar people anyway, don't they? It's like, oil and gas, this is your fault. It's incredibly frustrating to watch it happen again and again.
The only way, again, if you have a budget, the only things you can do is increase revenue, which the BC government has chased away industry. So tough to increase revenue other than taxation. And then lower expenses. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to cut anything. So they don't want to cut anything. People want more freebies all the time. So again, the only person left to squeeze is the people that have been squeezed so badly that they're clamoring for a $200 or $250 GST taco and tinsel break. And maybe that's where the government wants you, where you're just you're there with your bowl there asking for more, Oliver Twist.
Well, the thing is, they've categorized certain aspects of life, of the essentials of life. They've categorized them as sinful, haven't they? And obviously gas is number one there, as in gasoline. So you'd think,
a luxury.
So you'd think, despite that being absolutely essential, within the whole climate change the context of the climate change debate and all the rest of it, you'd think that that's where they're going to go, isn't it, to try and raise money? And exactly what you say, that like running out of growth, so therefore we'll just squeeze, you know, the sort of householder, the average guy. That's basically what's happened in the country I was born and raised in England, where you just you can't do anything. You can't do anything in England without the government coming and taking money off you. And certainly when it comes to driving cars, take a look at gas prices in the UK. I think it's a majority tax. They tax everything, and obviously like cigarettes, alcohol, and all the rest of it. That's low-hanging fruit to them.
Wow.
But they just tax everything. Every aspect of your life is just taxed to death because they have to fill the holes in the budget, and it's absolutely tragic. It's quite miserable to be in that country, is like to live there and try and thrive, because the government is just on your back to such an extent that it kind of suffocates you.
Well, at least in England, you could start out in the morning on one coast and get to the other coast by the afternoon. I mean, but in Canada, it may take a while to walk across this nation. It's spread out quite a bit. I mean, I joke, it would probably take at least a day and a half to walk across things.
You can do it in about 4 days, in where like Hadrian's Wall is, near the place I grew up in. Something like, I mean, you could probably run it. People do actually run it as well. They've run it in, maybe you're right, like a day and a half, if you're in the mood to be nuts and run across a country.
Well, you're not going to do it in Canada.
No, your point is valid though. I mean, in England, people don't drive very far in general, because they don't, like, you must have heard people say in England, like an hour drive is like, oh God, an hour. Like, I'm not gonna drive an hour. Like, they're not interested in that. And yeah, so the distances are a lot shorter in England, and that's relevant, I think, to this point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Shelley put the EV cars, it takes 10 hours to Vancouver. If we have to take a specialist application, it would take 3 days to charge. Well, I mean, I drive an EV, Shelley, and it doesn't, but it's like a 10
Maybe
minute...
she's got a Nissan Leaf.
There you go, maybe. Yeah. Maybe, the one you have to charge by winding it. But the point is valid. The point is valid, though, because in northern Alberta, the northern communities, it's very hard. If they don't drop the EV mandate, we'll plug it again. If they don't drop the EV mandate in Canada, there will be no auto sector in Canada. There will be zero auto sector in Canada.
Or maybe it'd be very, very niche and not exactly up to much. Wouldn't make much of a dent in the economy.
Maybe the Nissan will make the Leaf here, because nobody else wants to buy the Nissan. So there you go.
Yeah, maybe we can persuade them with $50 billion, a $50 billion sweetener. Right? Come on, Nissan.
Corporate welfare. We've been given a lot of other corporate welfare to Honda and Northvolt and all those other ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, the USDA threat assessment points to fentanyl super labs in Canada. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency Administration latest threat assessment says fentanyl super laboratories in Canada are a growing source of concern.
Yeah, and they reference that Falkland bust, not very far from where you're sitting right now.
There you go. Yeah.
Which is crazy to think, isn't it? There are some towns in BC and like parts of BC where some crazy business occurs. Enderby is another one of those places, I think. But you can see how it happens, because they are really like very rural and isolated, a lot of these places, and you can get up to no good, can't you? Not that I do that or recommend that. You should get up to good, not no good.
Yeah, we got a clip here from. Sorry, I was trying to read that post of Shelley's. I couldn't make it. I really don't understand it, I don't think. We're going to play a clip here from Mark Carney, and I'll try to read this again.
That America can own us.
I said that many times.
You said it many times. You promised voters that you wouldn't meet President Trump until he respected Canada's sovereignty. There you were in the Oval Office. I'm sure you enjoyed that a lot, with him calling Canada the 51st state to your face. So the question is, why did you meet him?
Well, a couple of things. One, he was expressing a desire. He wasn't calling. He'd shifted from the expectation to a desire for that
to happen. He was also coming from a place where he recognized that that wasn't going to happen. I made it clear to him in that context. And the other aspect of it was that for a period of time, he wasn't providing the respect to this office, to my predecessor in this office, that it deserved. The President and I have had several conversations prior to that meeting.
Yes.
It was clear that we were going to restart the relationship, discussing as two sovereign nations, and that is what happened.
So do you think that he ever intended to annex Canada?
There's wish and reality. Did he want to? Did it look like an attractive combination to him? Yes. Does he still muse about it? Perhaps. Is it ever going to happen? No, never.
Okay, but you talked very tough during your campaign and you rallied a lot of Canadians behind you. You seem now to be dialing it down a little bit. Was it politically advantageous to you to make Canadians feel that he was coming for Canada?
I recognized very early, I think I recognized very early on, amongst the earliest, that this was a threat. It was a threat to our sovereignty. I was very clear from the start that Canadians wouldn't stand for that. Canadians made it very clear, almost virtually to the individual in terms of the way they voted. They didn't all obviously vote for me, but the stances of other parties shifted towards where I began.
You said in one of your speeches, Donald Trump is trying to break.
Yeah, so there you go.
I must say, from just a political communications perspective, I'm not sure about his idea of trying to talk about the difference between desire and the reality. That's such a strange, like, obscure point to make. I don't know why is he wasting his breath on that. I really don't get that. So much of the way he speaks is kind of academic, isn't it? Which, if we cast our minds back, was quite damaging, wasn't it, to Barack Obama's political career?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people saw through it, and a lot of people didn't, and they fell for it. And that's when the moment Canadians realized they'd been had. But a lot of people still don't believe they'd been had. So there you go. This is a Western Standard story. CBC execs get instead, they didn't, there was a lot of kerfuffle about the bonuses. So now they fixed that. So they're just going to take a big salary hike, so instead of taking bonuses, they're just going to make sure they get it. So the bonuses are such a bad word. So just take it all in salary. One, you're sure to get it. And two, you don't have to use that word bonus there, right? So the executives took a nice big salary increase. There you go. But they said that most of the people working there are fairly paid, so they don't need a raise.
Yeah, they're a lot better paid than, how do I phrase it? They're more neutral colleagues in the journalism world.
Yeah,
it really pays to be a CBC.
So in 2024,
liberal,
they paid out $18.4 million in bonuses to 1,194 employees, including $3.3 million to 45 execs, while they were laying off staff. So they thought that was this is the trickster part about it, right? Oh, people didn't like the word bonuses. We still have to do it, so we just have to make it in a way that people can't get all riled up about the word. The Liberals are really all about that word games, right? Like, just instead of just saying, oh, we shouldn't be taking it and we shouldn't be laying off people while we take bonuses, they just like, well, we'll just make it part of our salary and then people can't complain about the bonuses. Good logic, no?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on in politics, though, isn't there? It's hardly the first time we've seen that.
Sounds like Trump has made another deal. It sounds like India's slashing its tariffs. India's one of the toughest countries to do business with. And I don't think Canada's going to get any deals there. They're slashing their tariffs to 0 for U.S. goods. That's a huge win for the Americans. Well,
it's important to acknowledge that they've rejected that. They said that that's not true, the Indians.
Well, there you go.
But there you go. Trump says what he wants, really.
There you go.
And his team believes him.
And then we got a clip here to play from his Middle Eastern tour here. This is in the UAE. lots of American flags being waved there.
You missed the best bit there with the girls like swinging their hair around for some reason.
You got the big welcomes everywhere. Like it was like they were all trying to outdo each other, from Saudi Arabia to Qatar and then to the UAE. And we got something to show you here, just for Canadians that don't realize that oil and gas and LNG leads to prosperity. So this next tweet here, before 1996, Qatar was a barren desert of about 320,000 people. And yesterday they spent, $96 billion on Boeing jets. There you go. We're going to play a little clip here that kind of talks a little bit about their history.
Natural gas field in the middle of the Persian Gulf, split roughly 60-40 between their own exclusive economic zone and Iran's. Their side of the field became known as the North Field, while Iran's became known as the South Pars Field, and its discovery would ultimately change both countries' destinies forever, because this field is by far the largest natural gas field ever discovered in the world. It is so enormous that the Qatari side of the field alone contains an estimated fifth of all the entire world's natural gas reserves. This single field overnight catapulted little Qatar into the number 3 position in the world for natural gas reserves, just behind Iran and Russia, and nearly double the natural gas reserves found across the entire United States. Its discovery would one day transform Qatar into the financial and economic juggernaut that we know it as today, and it is the primary source of Qatar's OP status on the world stage.
Go back to that previous slide. And you look on the right side of that image. Not a bad transformation. Yeah. Hey, not a bad transformation.
Same thing happened in what used to be called the Trucial States, which the British used to control, now known as the United Arab Emirates, and obviously Saudi Arabia as well.
So somebody should go.
It's a funny one, isn't it? But something I would say on that guy who does those YouTube videos, the one that you just showed, he does like geopolitical or whatever YouTube videos, doesn't he? It's important to bear in mind that Canada actually has an enormous, like mega superabundance of natural gas. It's just not really been explored properly in the way that it has in Qatar. So, theoretically, we could be up there on LNG if we were serious about trying to find it.
I believe that young man's a Canadian as well, and he's done quite a bit on Canada. He's done the passageway. How important the Northern Passageway would be.
He does a lot, yeah. He gets like millions and millions of views on his videos, doesn't he?
He does good work. But I would say is that the Liberals should watch this video and then listen to Justin Trudeau's comment and say there's no business case. Looks like the Qataris made a business case for it.
Well, I mean, Iran as well, like Iran, or even Iraq. Let's talk about Iraq, because most of us who are older than children, we can remember that war, can't we? Both wars, maybe, if you're old enough, in Iraq, which were basically very much related to Iraq's oil reserves, weren't they? And what Iraq contributed to the global oil supply. We have more oil than Iraq.
Well,
I mean, I find that's a very interesting way to kind of like educate people. Just say, remember all those stupid wars in Iraq where possibly millions of people died that were ultimately, at the end of the day, very strongly influenced by oil. We have more than that here. Like we're not minnows here in this country. Like in terms of oil and gas, Canada is a very, very big deal.
Mark Carney has said in previous statements that 80% of Canada's oil and gas needs to stay in the ground.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the Iraqis saying something like that? Just yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Oh, the Qataris. Can you imagine that?
If they talk about Canada, they must just like roll around laughing at like the abundance of resources and the virtue signaling of not to put them to market. It just blows me away. I don't understand it. I just can't understand it.
It is very difficult to wrap your head around, isn't it?
This one is a story that's blowing up in the United States. The former FBI director, James Comey, posted on his X account. He said
Instagram, I think it was.
Instagram. He found these seashells and he took a picture of it, and he said it looks like some kind of political message. Well, I'm pretty sure. We'll play this clip here from Peter Doocy.
James Comey wants us to believe, and we have this photo here, that he saw a cool, these are his words, cool shell formation on my beach walk. And the cool shell formation, according to the person who used to be in charge of the FBI, shows shells in the shape of 8647. 86 is common restaurant lingo, of course, for denying service to somebody. But after about 30 seconds of Googling, you can see that a good chunk of people all around the world also associate 86 with meaning to kill somebody. An old mob saying, basically, you take somebody 8 miles outside of town and then you put them 6 feet in the ground. James Comey, again, a guy who has prosecuted mobsters, apparently had no idea that this was a thing. He deleted the original post with the cool shell formation, and he writes, I posted a picture earlier of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, and I took the post down. That's not enough for Donald Trump Jr. He says, just James Comey casually calling for my dad to be murdered. This is who the Dem media worships. Demented. And Kash Patel, as we were coming to air, the new FBI director, one of Comey's successors, is saying that he is in touch with the Secret Service, and they are going to be sending Secret Service agents to talk to.
So we got this other clip to play first. We'll play this other clip here.
Deadly force during the Mar-a-Lago raid. This according to documents filed by Trump's legal team. Agents in unmarked polo shirts plan to bring standard issue weapons, ammo, handcuffs, medium and large size bolt cutters, and even lock-picking equipment as they prepared to go door to door at Mar-a-Lago. And they did, ransacking Melania Trump's bedroom along with Barron Trump's bedroom. The FBI also took extensive photographs of Melania and Barron's rooms for no apparent reason. Think about this for a second. Joe Biden sent men with guns to his political opponent's house and turned their bedrooms upside down. That's never happened in the history of the United States. And we've had some crazy presidents.
That's good.
This was.
I mean, that was posted to say that, oh, that was what was happening at James Comey's house, but that was actually happened to Donald Trump while he was considering running. Oh, no, it was after he was done, actually. That wasn't even when he was actually running yet.
That was craziness, wasn't it? I would say that, and when he was actually arraigned in court, and they had the little sketch and everything. Oh, there was a photograph as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just a campaign of harassment against Donald Trump. That is well and truly one for the history books, isn't it?
Since this Joe Biden book has come out, there's a lot of Democrats, even on CNN, saying that, okay, so we did wage a war against Donald Trump, and we need to stop. We need to figure out how not to be just the party of anti-Trump and actually come up with some policies. And maybe it was a mistake to try and crucify him.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, this thing with what's his face, Comey. I've never heard that 86 term before.
I have. When you're 86,
yeah,
get rid of it. Yeah.
But you'd think it is American, isn't it? And you'd think like that, like Ducey points out there, you'd think that he might be familiar with that lingo, having prosecuted gangsters in the past. But no.
I mean, it's a very common term, but anyway. It means get rid of. I mean, for me, it means get rid of, but I don't know. Let's move on to markets, though. Markets. Up and away. Up and away. Right now, up. The Dow up about 238 points. A lot of talk out there that, if you take Donald Trump's advice, buy stocks now. And a lot of the Magnificent Seven definitely moving upward. A lot of attention being put into the markets. Even some of the analysts now saying, that were thinking that there was going to be a recession because of the tariffs are now saying that those threats have passed. So money coming back into the markets. I know you and I talked about it.
It'd be nice if Trump decided to be our friend now that he now that the markets are happy.
Well, courage is where fear goes to die. Or fear is where courage goes to die. Anyway, gold. Gold is, again, when the markets do better, our friend gold takes a back seat, right? Gold off again this morning, a little bit off. But geopolitical situation definitely will hold gold up there. The Chinese and the Russians are still big buyers of gold, but gold off again today. So there you go, down about $50 this morning. Still holding over that $3,000 mark, but you know, that chart looking like it probably wants to go back. You know, if it gets under that one mark there, the 3,000 mark, it might go down quite a bit lower, and before it starts trending up again. So there you go. Bitcoin. You and I talked about Bitcoin when it started moving up from its low 80s there. That looks like it's going to challenge its previous high, and it's starting to bang on the door. Eh? So I mean, a lot of this stuff is, you know, you got to combine the technicals with the fundamentals and that, but you know, you can't ignore the stock market is definitely driven by psychological numbers as well, right? So psychological barriers, round numbers seem to be giving grief, but here we are. I think it's going to challenge that old high, what it does after that old high. So two things can happen when it hits its high. It can either break through it like a knife, and then if it does that, it will definitely shoot a lot higher. I shouldn't say definitely. The probability that it will shoot a lot higher is higher. And then if it doesn't break that high and kind of chunks around there, it likely will go back down for a bit. So there you go. You can play some probabilities, but you know, the wind is in the sails for crypto for sure. For Bitcoin, I shouldn't say crypto, Bitcoin itself. The Canadian dollar, it's starting to look sad. And this talk from the ministers, like Guilbeault and LeBlanc, not helping the Canadian dollar. This uncertainty in Canada, not helping. Like you and I talked about this. If the Conservatives won and they went unleash the beast, unleash the resources, the Canadian dollar would spring higher. This shows you what happens when the Liberals won. This is what the Canadian dollar thinks about it. This is the stock of Canada. This is Canada's stock right here. The Canadian dollar is the stock. And you tell me, technically, what does that stock look like?
It doesn't look happy, does it? I mean, it's basically demand for Canada, isn't it? Obviously, it's demand for Canadian dollars, but that's demand for Canada.
It's the stock price of Canada. Like this is our stock right here, Canada. And if they keep talking about no resources, and if Carney doesn't rein them in, or maybe he's using them to test the waters and get the screaming people to like say we don't want pipelines, we don't like oil and gas, then maybe he's using them because I mean it seems odd that he wouldn't have said to stop talking about it. Maybe he's using them to say it so he doesn't have to say it.
Yeah, perhaps. Although you can't be surprised that Guilbeault's come out and
but then LeBlanc,
and poo-pooed it.
Then LeBlanc as well, right? I don't know if you watched Melanie Jolie's press conference there when she was the auto sector. She's going to get memed for that one where she's just like, and we're done. Oh, it's like a comedy.
She's yeah, she is like a comic actress.
She said we have $2 billion to dole out to the auto workers. Now, you're going to need more than $2 billion. Let me tell you that. Canadian Tire. Yep. Canadian Tire buying the Hudson Bay brand. There you go. Canadian Tire buying the brand. The famous stripes for $30 million.
I find this one.
It. $30 million.
This is a funny one. Like, hey. Do you think of Canadian Tire as being a particularly prosperous brand right now? I don't really. I don't think is it doing well? I haven't looked at its accounts.
Actually, I think it does. It does fairly well. It's a bunch of other brands too, like Sport Chek. There's a bunch of brands inside it, so it's not like it's the first time it's ever kind of ventured into another brand, right? Let me just find it on here. I've never been excited about to own anything for sure, but Canadian Tire. There you go. Let's just have a look here.
And does this just mean we'll be able to go and buy their towels? Be able to buy those the nice multicolored towels?
I mean, if you look at a 10-year chart of Canadian Tire, basically flat. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, not exactly flat. In COVID, it went down to about $70, and right now it's trading around $150. It jumped a little bit for for this purchase of the Hudson Bay brand. I don't know. I mean, it's the brand they bought, I think. I don't know what they got for assets with it, but it was the brand they actually purchased. So.
And it wasn't exactly expensive, was it? $30 million
$30 million,
is
yeah,
pennies
I mean,
for these corporations.
So, I mean, the stock is fairly flat, right? So, not exactly what you would call, you know, like a growth stock if you're looking for a growth investment, right? So, and then Barclays said that they're no longer expecting, I talked about this already, they're no longer expecting a recession. But let's move on to the tech sector here. This is a good one. Because you've probably driven the Champs-Élysées as well, the Arc de Triomphe or whatever it is.
In a taxi.
Have you driven that? And it's if you look at the bottom of that picture, it's absolutely crazy because I was, you know, in there a couple of times and just like, there's no lines or anything. There's no lanes or anything. You just kind of get into the circle and figure your way out. Like France is like it's like a free-for-all when you're driving, right? Like I drove from Frankfurt down to the south of France to I can't remember the name, Marseille. Drove all the way through there and drove through Paris and that. And when I checked in the hotel in Paris, I said, "Where do I park the car?" And he says in his French accent, "You bring a car to Paris? You crazy?" The car cost more. We didn't use it for about 6 days. We were in Paris. The car cost more than the room cost to park the car.
Wow.
It was absolutely crazy. The guy felt bad for me and gave me half off when I left the parkade. He said, "I can't charge you this much." He's like,
it's like that in London as well. You just can't do it in central London and in central Paris, and probably that's true in Barcelona and places like that. You just can't drive. It's just not possible.
We got a clip to show you what full self-drive is capable of. Let's play this clip here. You can turn the sound on. Oh, we can't see the top of it, I don't think. Anyway, you can stop it there. Or you couldn't see the top of that, but it actually drove that area, and no lines or nothing. So vision-based full self-drive. I use it every day. It's absolutely incredible for people that have never seen it. Like Nikki showed a former politician here in town. She took her for a drive, and she couldn't believe. Like, there's a lot of people that are highly educated that cannot believe what the car is capable of right today.
Yeah, well, it shocked me a few months ago, whenever that was.
And it just gets better every time, right? Like, and now we showed that video of Optimus dancing. And then now people are calling it CGI. It's not CGI. So in the shareholder meeting, Elon Musk promises to have a dance troupe on stage with him, and they'll all be Optimuses. So there you go.
Are they going to do the Trump dance?
Actually, when he took it to, he took some Optimuses with him to show the Saudis and the Qataris, and they did do the Trump dance. So there you go. AI in the classroom. Let's play this clip.
At Alpha School, students spend 2 hours a day learning with AI teachers. The artificial intelligence adapts its lessons to each student, providing one-on-one personalised education. So what happens after those 2 hours are done? Well, the rest of the day is all about real-world skills, from tying shoelaces to learning how to swim and solving 100-piece puzzles. And the results are surprising. Students are scoring in the top 1 to 2% nationally, with the results so strong the model is expanding to states including Florida, California.
There you go. You got 2 little ones.
Yeah, I think they'll have a very intimate relationship with AI. Yeah, or I mean, nowadays I see people write posts on Facebook and stuff like that, and and Twitter, and it's like, this is obviously AI. I mean, it kind of, I think it's obvious when you've used it yourself. But obviously, kids are doing this in essays, aren't they, as well? It makes that like homework almost. And coursework, it almost makes that impossible now, doesn't it? Within a kind of within schools or universities. I think everything's just going to have to be either like Viva, where you have to talk your way through it, or it's going to be like with a pencil, paper and pencil.
I'm sure there's lots of educators sitting around right now wondering how you're going to do hive mind if you can't have the kids at school. Right? I said that as politely
I'm sure
as
that
possible.
the AI can be told, and it'll do it.
Anyway, EV sales have dropped in Canada, but Tesla, we got a picture here that shipped nearly 30,000 vehicles in April, making its highest monthly export volume in the last 12 months, and that's in Tesla Gigafactory in Shanghai. I was at the factory in Fremont, and it's their first factory and their smallest one. The Gigafactories are absolutely huge, and the Shanghai factory is a machine. It's their highest output factory. And but EV sales in Canada has dropped sharply in March. Like compared to a year ago, they had sales of 22,000 in March, and this year they sold 12. So it's right in half. Again, mandating people to buy an electric vehicle is not the way to do it. And then they scrapped that EV. I guess they put that back. That credit's coming back. But the best EV in Canada in the world is the Tesla, and they've got crazy tariffs on it right now. So there you go. And we got our meme section. This is the best part for those that stuck around for the memes. This is a good one here. Let's play this clip. Did I not put the clip in there? You're kidding me, right? We'll come back to that one. I'm going to find the clip there. Let's the next one there. I think that there's the link there, right there underneath this one. Play that one. It's underneath the next clip. Let's see if we can get it here, because that's pretty funny. It's always good when you're have to explain the joke, right? We got this clip from the MP there, Garrett. What's that? There you go.
On behalf of myself and my family, I'm pleased to sign this piece of paper, which has absolutely no legal significance. Pour tous les Canadiennes et Canadiens. Merci beaucoup.
Look at that guy. He even had the SEALs in the room clapping.
It's pretty good.
And then the next one. Cost of living going up and the standard of living going down. Why not, right?
Well, that has been the story for the last 5 years or so, hasn't it?
Why not? And then Gavin Newsom, it looks like he's going to be one of the front runners for the Democratic Party, but he's eyeing that 2020 presidential bid, and he's trying to distance himself from himself. And then,
but you can do that, can't you? You can do that in politics.
Yeah, Mark Carney did it. He distanced himself from the Liberal Party that he was a part of, didn't he?
Yeah, and the Liberal Party did it as well. Distanced themselves from Trudeau, almost pretended like he never existed.
They hid it. They hid in the basement until that's how Joe Biden won the election too. He hid in the basement. So, man, all these things just get redone. This is the one. We can do some of these. I don't know how many we do. Babylon Bee, they're exercising 10 other dangerous far-right health conspiracies. Because, obviously drinking water, like why would you hydrate yourself with the liquid God made when you can fill yourself up with beverages from ingredients you can't pronounce? Like, because you shouldn't be drinking just water. Water is like, I personally just drink water, but, getting sunlight too, another thing I do. So obviously I must be far-right. You should stay inside and binge watch some predictive programming. Is that what you do? Binge watch Netflix? And
what's that predictive? What does that mean? Predictive programming?
It means like programming that you should be watching. Eating meat that wasn't 3D.
Right, okay.
You shouldn't eat real meat. You should eat 3D printed meat or crickets, right, instead of real meat.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you should be having drunken sex with 300 people instead of a monogamous lifestyle and raising a family, because that's no way to go through life. And nobody should be bathing, right? Because that'd be a far-right thing. If you're bathing, you're contributing to water scarcity and climate change.
Causing droughts.
And comedy. You should not be laughing and improving your mental health. That is a far-right thing for sure. And you shouldn't be doing memes like we're doing, right? Only fill your brain with disinformation from reliable mainstream media sources There you go. And then you shouldn't spend time with friends and have deep conversations. You should be only taking antidepressants and suffering from loneliness. That's the way to do it. I don't think I want to do the next one here. You can do it if you want. But lifting weights, you shouldn't work out because the reason to become physically stronger is to oppress other people. And I don't think I'll do the last one either.
Yeah, that's one to avoid.
You can imagine your own things there, right? How you can imagine what else you can imagine. But here it is. Crickets. I think Shelley said that. Did you try some of the crickets, Shelley, that the Liberals are trying to sell you? Because crickets, you know, they're probably going down in price because there's not a big appetite out there for crickets. I still like Alberta beef. But that's our show for this week. Hope you appreciate it, and we do thank you for watching. And then we'll be back on Monday. No, we won't be here on Monday. Monday is a holiday. Victoria Day.
Victoria Day. All hail
Victoria
Queen
Day.
Victoria.
All hail Queen Victoria. When does King Charles get a day?
Yeah, exactly. We need Charlie Day.
Charlie Day. He's coming to Canada right away.
Exactly. Perfect opportunity, isn't it, to inaugurate Charles Day.
Mark Carney's going to call him out for his little invite to Donald Trump.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe Charlie will call him out for chirping him in the press.
Again, if people haven't been watching it, like the mainstream media in the United States, especially the left-leaning media outlets, have been actually talking up Donald Trump in this latest trip. I mean, it's hard to talk it down for what's being accomplished there. So, there you go. And then obviously Joe Biden's being thrown to the wolves there, and he's still on a tour. He's still on a tour, and still saying he's going to run. Meanwhile, you know, like the book that Jake Tapper and I think it's Alex. I can't remember the guy's last name. It always keeps slipping my mind. That book is pretty damning, especially coming from, you know, Jake Tapper and CNN.
From within the camp, within that team. Yeah. It's kind of friendly fire, isn't it?
One of their big guns, Jake Tapper. You know, anyway, the guy that was actually, you know, like he actually just like lambasted some people on his show if they dared say anything negative about.
Yeah, and he's got that sort of judgmental look, hasn't he? Where it's like,
oh yeah.
Like, how dare you?
Yeah, I think basically when he was on with Laura Trump, he just basically, this interview is over. I can't, there's no way we're going to, just like, okay. Somebody should
if only anyone was watching.
Yeah. I mean, he's having a tough time distancing himself from himself as well.
Well, the other guy tried it as well, didn't he? Well, two of the other ones, Lemon, and then the other guy whose name I often forget. What's his name? The younger guy. Brian Seltzer or something?
Brian Seltzer. Yeah. Like it's amazing he's back on the air after what he did.
Yeah, but he is.
But he's got a job still where Don Lemon doesn't. He's just doing like crazy race baiting rants on his own YouTube channel.
Well, he shot himself in the foot, didn't he? Elon offered him a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
and he destroyed it straight away.
And he went after him and just tried to, and then Elon cut that interview off. He said, like, you got one more question and make it good because this interview's over. Yeah, so anyway, there you go. There you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching NowMedia, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.